They stripped me of my voice the week we buried my mother. That night they told me my dreams would fail. I didn't argue. I was already planning. The dining room was a stage dressed in gold and crystal, chandeliers dripping light onto the polished table. The Harrington crest, lion rampant, was embroidered into each white linen napkin, its threads catching the glow like it had something to prove. Outside the windows, Chicago's December cold pressed against the glass. But the frost here was in the glances, not the air. Father raised his champagne flute. "To legacy," he said, his voice firm enough to keep everyone's eyes on him. "To discipline. To the heirs who will keep what we've built alive." The siblings leaned forward, smiling like their names were already carved into history. Victoria went first, reciting occupancy rates and the Vancouver flagship as if reading from scripture. Charlie followed, with expansion routes, and a shot of himself under the nose of a new jet. Ethan added numbers about megawatts and tax credits, the planet saved, one press release at a time. Each made sure to say we, but their eyes slid past me like I was an empty chair. Victoria turned her glass in her hand, the reflection winking off her diamond studs. "How's the coffee experiment?" she asked, her tone soft enough to sting more. "Still learning that espresso machines aren't balance sheets?" I folded my napkin, feeling the ridge of the crest against my fingers. "It's doing exactly what it's supposed to," I said. Father's gaze cut across the table. "Business isn't for dreamers, Maddie." The way he said my name made it clear the verdict had already been written. Charlie chuckled. Ethan pretended not to. "You'll realize you're not suited for this," he added, "and that's fine. There are other ways to be useful." The flashback arrived uninvited. 2 weeks earlier, the lilies still heavy in the boardroom air. We were in black, grief pressed into our suits. Father pushed a folder toward me, the legal counsel's pen poised like a needle. "We have to ensure continuity," he said. "Your mother's intentions were clear. This reflects the best way forward." I'd ask for time. He said there wasn't any. "You trust your family." The word family had weight enough to tip the scales. The first signature was slow, the second quicker, the third trembled just enough for me to hope no one noticed. Back in the present, dessert arrived. A sugar glass dome over lemon cream. Spoons tapped through it, silver breaking sweetness. Across the table, Uncle William's gaze was steady, not lost in the self-congratulation. Without a word, he shifted his chair, murmured to the waiter, and then stood beside me. "Your mother always liked the winter menu," he said quietly. "She liked the fireplace," I replied. "That too." His hand brushed the tablecloth as he slid an unmarked envelope beneath my folded napkin. His voice stayed casual. "We should speak. Somewhere without chandeliers?" I pushed my chair back, apologizing for leaving early. The room's approval cooled instantly. Coats were fetched. The maitre d' offered mine like a final courtesy. The night outside was clean and sharp. I tucked the envelope inside my coat, feeling its weight settle like a truth I'd been waiting for. Inside the envelope, the original will and a legal memo, proof her rights were stolen. The trick isn't to fight on their battlefield. It's to build one they can't see until it's too late. Most mornings begin with a ritual. Open the safe, read the first line of my mother's will. Let anger cool into aim. Lock it again. The paper smelled of ink and citrus. Steadier than coffee, it told me who I was before they edited it. My coffee shop was never meant to impress critics. It was an intake valve. I learned who padded occupancy, who forged VIP notes, which vendors were kickbacks with letterheads. I asked soft questions and listened harder. Where the system buckles at month end? Who signs for linen after midnight? Which door the regional VP never uses? At Orion's office, drop ceiling, scuffed concrete, a view of brick. I pinned rumors to a wall-sized map. Red thread traced weaknesses, green tabs marked brokers who liked quiet. Sophie converted gossip to geometry. LOCs nested like Matyashoka. Nominees with clean histories, trusts named so dull they could sedate auditors. 2% lots, she'd say. Nothing that makes a headline, everything that makes leverage. We bought slivers. a retired pilot selling Sky Vista for a cabin, a mid-level accountant liquidating for medical bills. Then a bank officer tilted his head at my passport. "Miss Harrington?" he said, surprise ringing like dropped cutlery. Sophie's fingers brushed my sleeve. "Stand down," and she smiled. "Different Harrington," she said, common as Smith in the Midwest. We walked out with our escrow and a new rule: your surname doesn't travel. William called from numbers that never lasted a season. He steered me to a trustee unimpressed by my father and sent a photocopy of an old board resolution that, beside our bylaws, opened a usable crack. "Don't thank me," he said. "Just don't let them rewrite her." Miami smelled like carpet and ambition. Panels yawned. The real business hid in suites with drapes drawn and NDAs multiplying. We angled for a Sky Vista lot. Quiet family office, quiet price. A rival conglomerate arrived, noisy and overpaid to prove it could. Sophie refused to give them free press. "There's a discreet auction tonight," she said. "They'll need to rebalance. We take the other half through a Cayman feeder and make the premium their problem." By midnight we sat in a suite that looked designed by money laundering. Beige art, beige whiskey, beige smiles. Sophie spoke. I read fatigue and timing. At 1:07 a.m., a seller with a 6 a.m. flight wanted the ordeal over. We took what the rival couldn't carry and wired funds through a channel that would never touch my name. The map thickened, pins multiplied, thread tightened. When a pie chart tilted our way, Sophie underlined a number and wrote, in block letters, almost. We set rules. No buys on earnings days. Never the same attorney twice. If an email thread hit 5 messages, it died and was reborn elsewhere. Once a week, I shut the door, read the sentence that named me as my mother had known me, and pictured her at the piano, humming the left hand, until I found the right. The anger no longer burned. It conducted. By April 2023, Orion's tree looked like a forest at dusk. We lost a hotel tranche to a hedge fund that flipped it for a text back. We gained an energy slice when a founder's divorce attorney needed liquidity. It wasn't heroic. It was math and patience, signatures and silence. On a rainy Tuesday, Sophie refreshed our dashboard and went still, 42%. Counted, confirmed, clean. It didn't look like triumph. It looked like a lever long enough to move the world. I circled a date on my paper calendar. October 21, 2023, Harrington. Empire 50th Anniversary Gala. "Sophie, Phase 3 is locked. They'll never see it coming. If they wouldn't give me a seat at the table, I'd take the whole ballroom." The flagship's chandeliers poured light. Strings murmured. Tuxedos drifted. The crest gleamed. At the threshold, "Sophie, Phase 3 is locked." I smoothed the silk and, for a heartbeat, saw a pen. A folder. My hand signing it away. They would meet a different me tonight. Polite nods opened like doors. "You look radiant," Victoria said. Charlie hugged my shoulders. Ethan looked past me. Father kissed my cheek and turned to a senator. "Enjoy," Victoria said. Empire at full theater. Ice tails, orchids, champagne moving like currency. The screen ran an archive, father, my mother, my siblings with mayors. "Building the future," a caption lied. I took a glass and let it chill my fingers. 10 minutes before my toast, my phone hummed. Sophie's overlay slid onto the teleprompter. Victoria leaked a report. Manipulation, illicit, Orion funding. 2 outlets running. I could hear her bracelets. "Ready," I typed. "Sophie." Package queued. "Screens obey you." A PR exec stopped me. 3 minutes, she said. 3 minutes is forever if you know where to place a blade. Backstage, a tech clipped the mic. The orchestra softened. Father went first and drank the applause, talking about decades of hospitality, sky and stewardship, and about heirs. 3 of them sat front row, luminous and sure. I was fourth, useful for surprise. "Please welcome Madeline Harrington," he said. Applause. I stepped into the light. "Good evening," I said, thanking donors, staff, and partners. I congratulated Victoria for occupancy, Charlie for routes, Ethan for megawatts. Then the screen behind me flickered. Photos dissolved into an organizational chart so clean it looked like a floor plan. Orion Group at the apex. Lines cascading into subsidiaries and holding entities. A second slide, audit letters, signatures in blue. A third, funding sources scrolling. This will be brief, I said. A story is circulating that Orion manipulates markets and runs on shadow money. Transparency is the antidote. I lifted the clicker. The lattice enlarged. This is Orion. These are the audits. These are the funds. Clean, boring, disclosed to the people who check them. Faces tipped up, recalculating. A board member polished what was already clear. Cameras ringed the room like tame satellites, lenses blinking red, livestream counter ticked upward on a side monitor no one was supposed to notice. I let silence work, the way a conductor holds a final note so the hall can hear itself. On the balcony, the strings hovered on a single harmonic, waiting for my cue. Only the final card, Orion is me, and as of this week, Orion owns Harrington Hotels, Skyvista Airlines, and Solaris Energy. Entirely. Entirely found where denial nested. The screen answered with proof. Closings, stamps, dates marching. 2 reporters forgot to whisper. The orchestra did not move. Victoria, framed by flowers for the perfect shot, looked small. Her glass trembled for the cameras. Charlie's jaw tightened. Ethan half rose, then sat. Father didn't reach for his pocket square. He stared, counting through assumptions. You've given this empire your labor and faith, I said. You deserve stewardship that is lawful, ethical, and not for sale to anyone's vanity. Ratios rotated numbers, not adjectives. Someone near the back began to clap, then reconsidered. I smiled at the hesitation. Tonight celebrates 50 years. Consider this the first step toward 50 more, on foundations that don't shift when a rumor blows through. I stepped back, letting truth settle over investors, politicians, and family, now frozen. I found Father's eyes and let him see the version of me he had edited out. The future didn't need humiliation. It needed clarity. Lights hot on my shoulders, the screen cool behind me, bearing my name without apology. I lifted my chin a degree and said, "And that's just the beginning. If you've been holding your breath with me this far, you'll want to stay for the moment the tables turn even further. Follow the channel now so you don't miss the next chapter." Empires fall faster than they rise, especially when they've rotted from the inside. By the time I stepped into the executive boardroom, the skyline was still wrapped in the pale, unforgiving light of October. Glass walls reflected every movement, every blink, a perfect stage for a dismantling. I placed one thick binder at each seat, their weight landing with a quiet authority. No one spoke, but I could feel my siblings' eyes tracking the gesture like cornered animals. Victoria broke first. "What is this?" Her voice was thin, but the diamond earrings swung defiantly as she flipped the cover. Charlie leaned back, arms crossed. Ethan didn't even touch his. "Evidence," I said. "Fraudulent valuations on the Solaris deal, inflated vendor contracts at Skyvista, kickbacks routed through 2 shell accounts." I kept my tone level, like I was reciting a weather report. Victoria laughed, sharp, brittle. "Fabricated." I gestured toward the audit letters projected on the screen behind me, the same ones I'd shown last night. Third-party verified, all notarized. A quiet rustle drew every head toward William at the far end. He opened a leather portfolio and slid forward 2 items. The first, the original will, intact and signed by my mother and father. The second, a printed 2018 internal email from Victoria to the General Counsel, instructing the preparation of an amendment, the very one that stripped my voting rights. The room chilled, even Robert Sr.'s gaze flickered. "With this," I said, tapping the will, "my original rights are reinstated, and under Section 12 of the bylaws I am invoking the for-cause removal clause." I flipped to the marked tab in my binder. Material adverse effect, triggered by documented fraud and willful misconduct. Sophie, seated near the door, nodded to the legal team she'd brought in. Copies were distributed to the independent audit committee. No one could claim they hadn't been informed. Charlie muttered something about dragging this into court. William's voice cut clean through. The vote is binding under Delaware corporate law, you know that. We moved to the formal roll call. Names ticked off, hands raised. Every director except my 3 siblings voted yes. Robert Sr. hesitated, his pen hovering, before finally marking his ballot. When the motion passed, the board secretary read it aloud. Removal of Victoria Harrington, Charles Harrington Jr., and Ethan Harrington from all positions, effective immediately. The words echoed like a gavel strike. The door opened. 2 discreet security officers entered, their presence unspoken but absolute. Victoria shoved her chair back, muttering about vendettas. Charlie swore under his breath. Ethan walked out without looking at anyone. As they disappeared down the hallway, I stepped to the window. Outside, workers on scaffolding had already begun lowering the Harrington Empire letters from the facade. Beneath, the polished steel panels gleamed with the first half of their replacement, Orion Group. Underneath the words HQ, I, OA, R. Robert Sr. lingered by the door, his expression unreadable, a flash of something between pride and regret crossing his face before he left. I sat down at the head of the table. The view was the same as it had been for decades, but the air felt different, clearer, less stale. The chair's leather creaked as I leaned back, letting the reality settle. My phone buzzed. A single text from Sophie. Victoria's corner office is cleared. Your desk is ready. They once locked me out of the boardroom. Now they knock before entering my house. The front gates opened with the slow, deliberate grace of someone who had nothing left to chase. I stood in the foyer of what had been Victoria's mansion, now mine, watching the headlights cut across the manicured drive. The portraits were still in their gilded frames, but the eyes in them seemed to follow me now. Sophie managed arrivals like a conductor cueing an overture. Victoria was first. Navy silk, chin high, gaze flicking over the art she once boasted about sourcing. Charlie followed, his smile careful, hands empty. Ethan came last, crisp as ever, his cufflinks catching the candlelight in the dining room. Welcome, I said, gesturing toward the long table set under the chandelier. The crystal gleamed, the silverware aligned like a contract signature. I took the head seat without hesitation. Conversation hovered on safe topics, travel, weather, the gala's press coverage, but the air carried a quiet awareness. Nothing here belonged to them anymore, except the invitation I had extended. When the plates were cleared for the main course, I laid out a slim folder beside each setting. Your new roles, I said, entry level. Orion's hospitality, aviation, and energy divisions. You'll learn them from the ground up. Earn your place. Earn the name. Victoria's fingers brushed the edge of her folder, but she didn't open it. Charlie gave a short, incredulous laugh, but it faded when he met my eyes. Ethan nodded once, the smallest show of acceptance. From my own folder, I slid a report toward my father. First week's performance. Orion's assets have increased by 4%. Debt ratios down, market confidence up. His hands lingered on the cover before he opened it. Sophie wheeled in a polished wood box. Inside lay the code of stewardship, leather-bound, embossed in silver. Every Orion executive signs this, I said. It commits to lawful governance, ethical leadership, and long-term preservation of the legacy, ours, not just mine. Robert Sr. read the first page slowly, his thumb resting on my mother's motto printed at the top. When he looked up, the weight in his gaze was different. I misjudged you, he said. I know, I replied, my voice even. The candles flickered in a draft as Sophie stepped to my side. The press is outside. Ready for the photo? I rose, smoothing my jacket. Let's give them something worth remembering. I've fought battles you couldn't see, and tonight I stood in the place they swore I'd never reach. If my journey made you feel something, pride, anger, hope, tell me. Share your thoughts, your questions, your own stories of defying the odds. Your voice matters here as much as mine did in that boardroom. If there's one lesson I'll pass on, it's this. Never let someone else write the ending for you. Learn in silence, plan in shadows, and step into the light only when you're ready to win. Stand your ground, build your own table, and when you do, own the room.